the best that we can be really hoping for is some kind of agreement at a ceasefire. And as we know, over Easter, there was an attempt to broker a ceasefire between both Russia and Ukraine. In fact, there's been many declarations of ceasefires which have actually been violated, which is something that President Zelensky had kept complaining about when he was speaking previously to President Trump. So this is really the stage that we're at. A peace deal in any kind of negotiations is always a long way off. We're hearing a lot of rumours being put on the table about territorial exchanges, those being, pretty one-sided on the part of Ukraine, all kinds of statements that may or may not be coming out of Russian sources about potentially Russia not going any further than the territory it currently occupies. And I would just tell everybody listening to this that we're in for the long haul here. This is going to be a very long, drawn-out situation, and we should be tempering expectations about any kind of breakthrough.
And yet the Trump administration seems to be putting a lot of pressure, certainly on the Ukrainian side, to try and get to some kind of peace agreement or deal as soon as possible. I mean, just in the last 24 hours, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, told reporters in India that they're expecting for both sides to agree to whatever deal the Trump administration has put on the table, or, frankly, the United States would walk away or move on. What do you think that actually means?
Well, what it means is it's the Trump administration's timeline. It's the president's and it's the vice president's timeline. It's Trump who has actually pushed this at this particular juncture. He is the person who has the most at stake here in terms of securing a ceasefire and getting a peace deal. He famously said that he would get a deal within 24 hours during his campaign. And he said then that he wanted something within the first 100 days of his presidency, which is around now, or he wanted to have a deal by Easter. And the point is that the two sides who are directly involved in the conflict, both Ukraine and Russia, are not at that place yet. So you've basically got one party in all of this, which is the United States, and a very personalized approach by President Trump that wants something that the other two parties are not willing at this point to give. And then you've got lots of other players, not just the United Kingdom and European actors, but also China, Iran, North Korea, and many others who are involved tangentially or even, directly in this conflict. This is the largest military conflict in Europe since World War II. So, of course, it's going to be pretty complicated.
Fiona, you've worked closely with the Trump administration the first time round and with Donald Trump. Do you think there is a strategy here? Do you think they do have a plan when it comes to Ukraine, and it isn't just some kind of ad hoc, look, we've got to get this sorted within 24 hours or within his 100 days or whatever timeline the president might have?
Well, of course, there's a plan, but it's a one-sided plan. I think that, this is really what's at stake here. President Trump wants to regularize, normalize, and reset the relationship with Russia. That's very clear. It's been clear since the first presidency of President Trump. He's always wanted to sit down with Vladimir Putin and sort out all of the difficulties in the bilateral relationship, everything from nuclear issues and nuclear arms reduction. There's all kinds of economic and business deals that Trump himself and his immediate circle are very interested in. It's not really about US-Russian relations writ large. And he has, obviously an interest, as he said many times, about forging a personal relationship beyond what it is already with Putin. And he wants to extricate the United States from its support from Ukraine. He's also said that very clearly. He also wants to pull back from the underpinning of European security and get the Europeans to pick up not just support for Ukraine, but also a much more involvement and much more in-depth payment for all of their own security. That's also very clear. So yes, there is a strategic perspective there. And I think, part of the US strategy and the Trump administration strategy is to push the Europeans to go off, essentially on their own in terms of framing what they want in European security and making it very clear to the Ukrainians that they can't expect much more future support from the United States.
I guess at this point, then, is it very much clear the message is that the United States can't be relied upon?
Absolutely. I mean, certainly not in terms of continuing its support for Ukraine and in terms of the continuation of the kind of support that the United States has been giving to Europe and European security until now. Frankly, President Trump isn't unique in this. US leaders have been making this clear to Europeans for a very long time now, including going back more than 10 years to the Wales summit of NATO when Barack Obama was president. There's been a push to get Europeans to step up their role in their own security. It goes back even decades before that. And Trump is now giving this in the form of an ultimatum.
Fiona, you just said that, what we're seeing in terms of Donald Trump pushing for the Europeans to step up, it's something that other presidents in the United States have called for more than a decade. Would you say that other presidents have also, taken the Donald Trump path in trying to reset relations with Russia, namely President Obama, even before him, President Bush? I mean, in many ways, there are those who believe that Ukraine was a gift to the United States, and President Biden too didn't really want, and it's something that the Ukrainians have said to me in the past, that while the Americans have wanted Ukraine to win, they haven't wanted Russia to lose either.
Of course, because always since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, going back to the early 90s, US leaders have been very nervous about the complete collapse of Russia in some form or another. The United States has always prioritized Russia in its relationships with the former Soviet republics. And that goes for Ukraine as well. Everything has always been looked at through the prism of Moscow. There's been constant efforts to reset that relationship. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, they've all tried it. But what's different about President Trump, it's not the fact that he wants to reset that relationship. It's just it's so personal for him. And it very much fits into his own worldview. He and Vladimir Putin have shockingly similar worldviews, which is not something you could say about previous US presidents. They did want to have a personal relationship with whoever the Russian leader was at the time. Bill Clinton and Boris Yeltsin had a very personal relationship that really dominated the US-Russia relationship. But this is really the first time that we've had a US president who wants to emulate the Russian leader in some way, who wants to create a hyper-personalized presidency, who wants to, actually basically govern his own country in a very similar fashion, very top down without any checks and balances, and somebody again who shares the same worldview of a world that is divided up among three major powers: Russia, the United States, and China, with very clear spheres of influence. That was not the direction of travel of other US presidents. So in actual fact, there's probably more chance under Trump of a close relationship between Trump and Putin, and at least between the top of the US and Russia, than there has been previously. But let's just say that broader US sentiment is not moving in that direction. Trump has managed to change the sentiment of some of the people around him in the Republican Party, but you're still seeing in polling in the United States a great deal of suspicion, particularly towards Vladimir Putin, even if there's always been, some modicum of support of improving relationships overall with Russia.